He was visiting my town where I happened to live. At that weekend, his denomination was having a big gathering, and he was preaching at the big service. So I wanted to go because he was a relative. So of course I wanted to go show some support. So I invited my deaf church congregation, it was not in Kansas, this was in another state, to come along with me. So we went to watch my family member preach. And I did have several of my congregation show up. And we took up an entire row. We were sitting right in the middle. So my relative was preaching the word, and my church was just like it was here. There was just a variety of denominations. There were Lutherans, there were Catholics, there were people who were Methodist, some people who were from the Assembly of God denomination. Everybody had a variety of backgrounds in that church, just as we do here. So anyway, we were sitting, we took up an entire row, and we were taking in the message. And as I was watching him, my relative, a pastor, started to name Lutherans and said Lutherans are going to hell, Methodists are going to hell, Assembly of God people are going to hell. They are all teaching bad doctrine. And every time he preached, a Lutheran was going to hell. And I knew that somebody else in my church that was a Lutheran background. I'd look at them and say, I'm sorry, I'm so sorry. Then when he'd say, well, Methodists are going to hell, and I knew somebody else was a Methodist before, I said, well, I'm so sorry. Then when he said Assembly of God folks, I knew that there were several Assembly of God folks there. So I said, I'm so sorry. And then suddenly, he also said, and any female pastor is going to hell. And all of my church members looked at me and they all said, I'm sorry. But it was so funny. All the denominations that he named and all women would be going to hell. And he knew that I was there. He knew that my church had members from a variety of backgrounds. But he went ahead and preached that message anyway. That we were all going to hell. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we took this in and just thought about it another year. In Kansas City, Noah, he was preaching at a conference in Kansas City. So Noah and I went to hear him. And we got into the lobby and there were lots of people around, and he beckoned me over. I didn't know how to do to knock it off. He's older than me, and I don't know why. I just went ahead, even though I knew what he was going to say, I knew he was going to show me verses that proved I was going to hell. But anyway, I just went over to him anyway. In front of all those people, he started preaching that to me, and I just didn't say anything. He showed me lots of verses. And then that night, I found out that he was not preaching, but somebody else was going to be preaching at that conference. So I felt a little safer that I wasn't going to have to worry about him point me out and tell me I'm going to hell all night. So there was me, Pastor Noah, and my family member who was sitting with us. Now, the preacher who was preaching started telling this whole group of people, there was a large congregation, that you should do this, you should not do that. You can eat these things, but you cannot eat these other items. You can wear these type of clothing, but not these other types of garments. Your hair needs to look like this way, and you should not style it in another fashion. So he was telling people all these rules, and I thought, how odd is that? Where did all those rules come from, was what I was wondering. And every time he said, you must do this and you must do that, I would look down at my relative and say, where in the Bible does it say this? say, well, the Bible implies that. We just feel like that's what the Bible is telling us. And I just thought, the Bible doesn't say anything about that at all. You're just adding way too many rules into this life. And that really, really disgusted me. This pastor was adding into scriptures, and he was also deleting scriptures and replacing it with rules. And that was really frustrating for me to see a reverend hilly-nilly coming up with a list of rules for people to follow. So today's text segment is a lesson to us about making up rules and laws as if we're following Moses and not Christ. This is important. You know, there's a big difference between following the laws of Moses and following Christ's teaching. They are greatly different. The laws of Moses bring us into bondage, whereas Christ brings us into freedom. So we'll be reading from Hebrews. And we don't know for sure who the author of Hebrews is. However, theologians feel it was Paul or maybe Barnabas who wrote the book of Hebrews. So in the first two chapters, the author is explaining the importance of realizing that Jesus is superior to the prophets and to the angels, that Jesus is heads and tails above them. Jesus is also beyond all temptation and sin and suffering. Regardless of what kind of temptation or suffering you face, we can make it through because Jesus will always be walking by our side, helping us. Jesus will always be with us and help us get through and save us, so to speak. The author understood clearly that Jesus was above all prophets, rabbis, and kings. And now the author is ready to talk to the Jewish believers and is going to give them a very important but very painful message about Moses. The early church was made up of Jews who believed in Jesus, and they had accepted Jesus as their Savior. They were washed with the blood and of our sacrificial lamb. They were saved. However, most of the Jewish letters have a lot of rules to teach us today, and this is teaching them about the laws of Moses and being overly regulated. Because remember, there were 613 laws in the Messianic Code. So when people were going to listen to this message, it was going to be very painful and grievous to them because they were still Jewish by tradition, and so they were still adhering to the Messianic Code, or to the Mosaic Code. And the author says you need to think very carefully about Jesus. And Jesus is higher than any priest. Jesus is God's messenger. He wanted the believers to really attend to Jesus and understand Jesus better and get to know Jesus better so that they fully knew Jesus, not taking half measures, but to know Jesus in his entirety. Now there's a translation of the word apostle that's very interesting here. In one point, God uses the word apostle instead of the word messenger, and there's only one place in the New Testament where God uses apostle to apply to Jesus. Usually, apostles are used to the folks that Jesus sent out to go and carry the word and teach and preach. However, in In John 17 and 18, it says, Jesus is saying, you have sent me into the world as I will send all of these after me into the world. So the reason that God called Jesus an apostle is because Jesus was over all people. And Jesus did come, he gave his message, because Jesus was, is, and always will be over everyone on earth for eternity. So Jesus is our highest high priest. Jesus is our perfect mediator between God and man. Jesus is our perfect bridge between heaven and earth, between God and all of us. As Job said a long time ago in the Old Testament, God is not a human as I am. I cannot argue with him. I cannot beckon him to come to court. I wish we had someone to come as a mediator, someone who can make the bridge between God and myself. Job wrote those words eons ago. He really wanted Jesus to come. However, there's one more person that's also significant. And the author made it very clear that Jesus is over anyone, including Moses, and including Moses' law. God sent Moses to us, to the Jewish people. Moses did act as a mediator between God and the nation of Israel. The entire Old Testament shows that Moses was quite elevated and revered and honored. Moses was worthy of great respect and great honor, big time. And Moses actually came face to face and talked with God at the burning bush. Whew, that's pretty outstanding, isn't it? That's a big honor. Moses received the law and then brought it to the nation of Israel. Moses led his people out of Egypt through the Red Sea. That's outstanding. Moses explained the way that the temple needed to be built. He explained the sizes, the dimensions. And God told Moses that he must give a sacrificial offering and all these other things he needed to do. Moses was huge. He was renowned. He was above all the people of that time, right? He was big. He was on earth. And Moses was at the top. However, the writer of Hebrews goes on to say, now that was then. However, you need to know that Jesus is far superior to all of the laws, to all of the rules, to all of our invented codes. Jesus is atop all of them. Jesus is the pinnacle. Moses and Jesus were both chosen by God to be mediators of his message. That is true. They both served faithfully and continually. That's true. They both deserve honor and glory. That's a fact. But the writer of Hebrews continues to say, Jesus deserves far more glory than Moses. Because Jesus is the builder of God's house, which means Jesus constructed the house for people, meaning Jesus built the house for his church. Now Moses was here to talk to the nation of Israel, and the nation of Israel is a member of this house. However, Christ built the entire house. Do you see the difference? So the Messiah deserves more glory than Moses, because Jesus did successfully carry out everything that Moses said would happen in the future. Jesus achieved it all. Moses' ministry was to teach in order for people to be ready for Jesus to come. And that's why Jesus said, different one. Jesus said, my word I did give to you while I was with you. All these things that were written about me in the law of Moses and in the prophets and in the Psalms, I must complete. And that all has taken place. So Jesus was more glorified than Moses, because verse 6 says, the Messiah is the ruler of God's house. Jesus was the builder of the house, and the spiritual people of God lived in this house. However, the head of the house is Jesus still. And that's really different. Okay, I'm going to teach you something. Both Moses and Jesus were selected by God. However, Moses deserves some glory, and Jesus deserves far, far greater glory. Much